We're here with Robert Hyde. We're talking about The Lost Word, which is a new card game which has been based on the best-selling book, The Lost Words, which is absolutely beautiful and on many a coffee table around the world. Robert, how did you hear about The Lost Words?
I've actually known Rob McFarlane for about 7 or 8 years because we also have a book publishing company called Galileo, and we published the collected poems of a lady called Nan Shepherd, who wrote in the early part of the 20th century, very famous Scottish poet now, and Rob is very much an apostle for Nan's work. And I got in touch with him 7 or 8 years ago when I wanted to publish Nan's poems, and he very kindly wrote an introduction to the book. So we met that way, and then a couple of years ago we came up with the idea of doing jigsaws based on The Lost Words. So we did that jigsaw, the famous jigsaw of the otters that Jackie very often does in her shows. And then, after we'd published the jigsaws, I just suddenly thought one day, actually, it would make a wonderful card game. And so I put together some thoughts and, a sort of rough schematic of how the game would play, and approached Rob and Jackie, by which time I'd met Jackie and knew her well as additionally. So. And they were very enthusiastic, and so that's how we got going, really.
That's brilliant. Okay, and what did you experience any kind of problems when you were putting it together? Was it a difficult game to just design?
Actually, not, because the way the book works, I mean, just lent itself actually very easily. It made all these sort of suggestions as to how you could not only have a basic mechanism, but make it interactive and make it a sort of family experience. I mean, the book was very friendly to the way of making it. I mean, I had done a board game before based on the book Sophie's World, which was 3,000 years of philosophy as seen through a Norwegian school teacher. You probably know the book. That was a much more challenging way to make a book into a board game, but actually the book, The Lost Words, really lent itself very easily to this card game treatment.
And obviously Tabletopia have taken this and they've turned it into an online card game. So how does it feel to you to see kind of like your baby come to life in a digital world?
I love seeing it, because actually, having been a book publisher most of my life, I then branched off into multimedia 20 years ago. I'm ashamed to say we're no longer that, maybe 25 years ago. Worked for a company called the Multimedia Corporation in London, and we were actually making books into CD-ROMs.
Right.
And we did a lot of games at the time, and we actually made a game of Sophie's World. And so so I've been quite used to looking at games in a multimedia situation. So but it's been a long time since I've looked at one of our games in that kind of way, and so it was really fun to see it. I mean, I confess I have not yet played an entire game. I've just looked at the cards and the mechanism and whatever, and they look absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I'm just astonished how quickly Tabletopia were able to do it, because I can recall that we sometimes took a year. In the old 25 years ago, we would take an entire year probably to reach the stage that they did. So
and what I found amazing as well was that the artwork. I mean, the artwork on these is so beautiful and is so intricate, and that they've managed to kind of get that all just beautifully sharp and crisp in there, so you can actually double click on it and see the cards. I think that's just really well done.
And as you know, but our audience may not know, I mean, there were actually several pieces of art which were unique to the card game. So, you know, we haven't just used existing art from the book. All the backs of the cards are original artwork, and the eagle you see on the front was an absolutely there. Was absolutely made for the card game itself, and so you're not just seeing already existing pieces of art from the book.
There's a second book due out soon, isn't there, in October?
There is indeed a second. Everyone's good. The first glimpses of the Lost Spells book were broadcast last week. It's not published until the first week of October, but there was a lot of activity on Twitter last week when someone actually saw the first copies. And instead of being a huge book, The Lost Spells is actually a very small book.
Okay.
So they've gone from very big to very small. And I'm lucky enough to possess a full PDF of the book, and it's absolutely amazing as well. So I mean, it will give a new life to the lost words, but it will also create obviously a really bestseller. It can't be anything else but a bestseller this autumn. But the Lost Words itself goes on and on and on, and schools have adopted it. They've done it's in hospitals. They've done artwork for hospital walls and things. So the book has a very long life all of itself.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Yeah. Well, hopefully the card game will be just as successful, and yeah.
I certainly hope it will, but
you think there might be
the indications are good.
A Lost Words card game too, do you reckon?
I can easily see that there will be other, whether it will be a card game or whatever. I can easily see that we might make the family larger in the future.
It's very beautiful. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you so much for talking to us, and have a
lovely
day.
A pleasure to talk to you as well.
We're here with Mark from Tabletopia. Hello, Mark. Do you want to start off by telling us how you got to Tabletopia and what it is, and a bit about it?
Yeah, so I'm the community manager for Tabletopia. I joined them earlier this year. Tabletopia is a digital platform for playing your favorite board games in the digital world, basically. It's a game sandbox, so we give you the components and you play it. You need to know the rules, but it kind of gives you that feeling of sitting across the table from your friends, because you're the one having to move the pieces and push the cubes and keep track of your score and make sure your friends aren't cheating as well.
That's brilliant. How are you drawn to this? Are you naturally a gamer?
Yeah, so I'm a board gamer. Well, I have been at least for the past 4 years. When I met my now fiance, who she'd been playing board games since she was 5, but I got sucked into the world. I come from video games and film and television, so I've always been interested in creative works and beautiful things, and games are just an extension of that creativity.
So Mark, what is your favourite game? What would you say is just something that really fires you up every time you play it?
Oh, you know what? What I really like playing on Tabletopia is cartographers. It's a roll or a flip and write, but I really like how we've adapted it for the digital space, where instead of writing icons in, you just grab tokens and place them on the board. So it kind of becomes a tile placement game in that sense.
Yeah, it must be. Do you find that there are some games that change quite a bit when they go onto the digital kind of format? Do things move around and you say, actually, we can't do that, but we can do this?
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice thing about Tabletopia, where we have to adapt and we have to get creative, but it allows us to sort of communicate games in a different visual language. So where we don't have to take up an entire board table rather with the board, you can now just have players sitting right next to each other in a neat row because everyone's, on their 16:9 monitors. And so you can actually change the layout to be more accommodating in some cases, and you can direct people with the camera angles in the game. So it's really another way of experiencing
That's
things.
fantastic. Well, we've got a few games coming to Tabletopia for UK Games which we're very excited about. Ratsio, obviously, which is a De Vere game, but which we promote and which is going up for one of the UK Games Expo prizes. And Lost Words, which is the one that I'm here to talk to you about today.
Absolutely.
So, as I've mentioned in an earlier interview, Lost Words started off as a book.
Yes.
An absolutely stunning book, which was great. And then it became a game.
Oh, you have it? Wow.
Well, we have the mock-up, and we have what cards are going to look like and things like that. But then obviously we've sent it over to you.
Yes.
To make into something beautiful for Games Expo, to give people an idea of what's going to happen, because this doesn't come out until October. So,
no.
You want to just tell us what happens? Like, someone comes to you and says, "This is a game, make it work." What do you do?
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing we do is we have a conversation with the publisher or the designer, and we figure out if the game is a good fit for us. So, for example, one of the few limitations we have is dexterity games don't really work on Tabletopia. So no flicking meeples across the table, and nothing like that. But once we know that the game is a good fit, or that given our platform we can make it a good fit with a few tweaks, we then get the rules from the publisher, and we get the artwork as well. So we get the cards, we get the boards, basically anything they would send to the printer, we take on board and we convert that into a digital format.
What's important for us, obviously, when we come to you, is we want to say, we've got this stunning artwork. The artwork really, I mean, it has poems as well, spells that go with it, but the artwork is one of the main things. I think we want it to look crisp, we want it to look amazing.
Needs to shine,
It's really important. So possibly, well, I think it's as important as the gameplay in this particular case, because it's just such a stunning thing to look at. How are you able to make things so crisp and clear and do that? Is there a way that you...
Absolutely. I mean, we have a few visual tricks up our sleeve. We sort of manipulate, I mean, getting into the technical details of it. When you set up a game, you'll create all the cards, so you'll create their fronts and backs, you'll create all the different tiles and anything that's used in the game. But you'll also create the game surface, so the space you're playing on. You'll add little light flourishes to sort of visually guide people and highlight things. So, for example, if you have a deck that's important, you might put a little halo around it, and this was just to give those visual flourishes. And it's the visual language that helps communicate how the flow of the game works. And then you can also make the background. So in a lot of cases, you can add like a nice skyline or a skybox or something that'll give a really good feel for the game.
No, that's great. I love it. And this one didn't seem to take very long to make either. It seemed like, by the time we sent it off to you, you were coming back already with, your first draft, which was quite exciting. Have you had games that have taken loads longer than you were expecting, or is it
I mean, definitely the 3D miniatures heavy games, those can take a bit of a time, because you got to make sure that the 3D models work just right, or they get a bit wonky with the physics and things get a bit crazy in there. But I think a lot of those games eventually get sorted, as long as the files are good to begin with. So we're sort of working with what we're given, and then we have to make it work. But we've definitely had games in the past using those miniatures and making sure they just look right and they feel right. So
Mark, do you want to talk us through basically how the whole thing works? I think you've got some pictures you can show us.
We do, yeah. So we have a workshop tool here on Tabletopia. It's actually, we use the same tool that we give to everyone else. So it's so simple to make these games. There's no coding required. There's no programming necessary. You actually can just hop in, and we've got a comprehensive knowledge base, which will walk you through everything and give you the steps. If you are a bit strapped for time, you can also contact us and we can help you make the game, but it couldn't be simpler to actually just make it for yourself. So once you've loaded, once you've got all your artwork prepared and you've got everything as if you would send it off to a printer, you can then import it into Tabletopia using our different tools. So we can import cards and card decks and tokens, game boards, miniatures, and you'll see it's really easy just to create your own object. So in this case, I'm showing you a card, which can actually, you just upload the front, you upload the back, and you set the dimensions, and you just hit save, and then it goes into our backend, and we give that to you to pop into your game. So once you're actually editing your game, you can just drag and drop the different assets into the game editor, and they'll inhabit the space where players will play the game, and then you're left with a final beautiful game after a bit of touching.
Wow. It's very obvious with this past year, everything being postponed or moved virtually, that this is going to be kind of the way we move in the future. I don't know any gamers that haven't been playing online with friends and family, and I think it's a fantastic extra step kind of into our community, if you like. Do you think expos will be offering this kind of thing routinely alongside normal cons in the future?
So, it's interesting. I think one of the really cool things that has come out of this, and it's, none of us want to be confined as the way we are, but I think what's really nice about having the online expos is that it's made them a lot more accessible to people. So, for example, I'm based in Australia. I went to Gen Con once 3.5 years ago because it's a very expensive and long trip for us. But this year I got to go, and this year I'm going to UK Games Expo, and then I'm going to Spiel Digital. So it gives me a chance to actually participate in these cons, which I normally couldn't. Granted, you don't get, you don't get the food, you don't get the trade hall, but you still get the experience of being in that community of gamers and publishers and people who love the same hobby that you do. I think going forward, what would be really interesting is seeing a hybrid where you have these physical cons, but they have a online presence that runs simultaneously. So people who can't make it physically can still attend in some way. Yeah.
No, I think that would be absolutely lovely, actually, because I did the same thing. I popped into Gen Con, and I know a lot of people are going in here. I'm going to go to Spiel.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. And it's so nice to meet people from around the world. It's lovely to see it kind of come full circle, so that people can play this before it's even been released. I think that's just such a marvelous thing. Thank you so much for talking to us and taking the time.
Have a good con.
Bye bye.